Welcome back. It is the Beyond Emissions podcast, brought to you by Solagent, the largest pure-play solar distributor in the Americas, pioneering solar distribution in the United States since 1979 and now around the world. We're excited that you're joining us today here at the Beyond Emissions podcast. We have a special guest. By the way, all past episodes, experts from around the world joining us on a regular basis right here, discussing renewable energy and, our mission together, you, I, all of us, of creating this emissions-free future, this world that is beyond emissions. We're excited that you're here. Catch all past episodes right here at the Solagent YouTube channel. Like, subscribe, comment down below as well so you can be a part of this ongoing conversation about creating this world that is beyond emissions. Also Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, we're all there as well. An exciting guest, as always. We have amazing guests every single week, folks who are hands-on in helping us create this beyond emissions future. And I am super excited. About a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, I'm Energy Storage Manager Josh Brum, Energy Storage Manager here at Solagent. So I get my fingers in a lot of different projects, get to be involved with some really cool stuff from a technological standpoint, especially mission-driven companies that are doing amazing things with renewable energy. And I got this email. Josh, I'd like you to get on a call. It's a company called Clinic in a Can. Michael Wawrzewski, founder, president, and CEO of Clinic in a Can, got on a call with us, and I was blown away. I was like, wow, we have to get you on the Beyond Emissions podcast. Just the mission that these folks are doing, in addition to the mission of creating an emissions-free future, using renewable energy to power their systems. Just the mission itself is life-saving. It saves lives. And as you see in the news recently, prayers, my heart goes out to the travesty of what's happening, all of the people and the victims who have been killed in Israel, what's going on in Ukraine. We've lost a lot of life this year, but there are organizations that are out there helping to save lives and using renewable energy, all in the process as a part of that mission. ClinicInACan.com, Michael Wawrzewski from Clinic in a Can, founder, president, CEO. Michael, welcome to the Beyond Emissions podcast.
Well, thank you, Joshua. It's an honor and a pleasure to be invited to talk and to have you believe we're noteworthy to discuss with your audience. So once again, thank you.
Oh, my pleasure, and just glad that you're here. Thank you. So your organization, let's give a background actually before we go there, real quick. I always start off the show with this. Audience, what does Beyond Emissions mean for you? Type it down in the comments section down below. Be a part of that conversation. What does it mean to you? Michael, what does Beyond Emissions mean for you?
I think for the application for our business, it is seeing instead of generators in third world countries or disaster situations, instead of you seeing, the U.S. government or nonprofits responding to famine, disasters, war zones, post-Civil War conflicts with, individual generators that, the combined carbon footprint is quite enormous, that instead we use renewable energy, portable, solar-powered, mobile energy containers or trailers or pods to do the same thing that to take the place of generators. And so, after being in the medical relief world for almost 28 years, I've seen it all, traveling to Africa, Central America, South America, and we have backup generators for a good reason at hospitals, and that is because if somebody's on a ventilator to sustain somebody's life, you want to make sure that you have consistent power, or you think about Africa, the reality of providing them, first world medicine requires a constant and consistent source of electricity, and most of the time it's generators or there is no power. So to shrink this back down to answer your question, I would like to see us use the natural resources that God's giving us in sunlight, harvesting that, putting it into batteries, and then in times of need that we're able to respond with through stored power and solar to help our friends and neighbors in need. So that's the long and short story.
Yeah, conflict zone, natural disasters, all can experience major problems and periods of intermittence because of supply chain issues and getting the fuel back to the front lines or wherever that disaster might be, whatever it might be. And being able to mitigate that by having your fuel source local right there, that saves lives. That's amazing. Michael Wawrzewski, founder, president, CEO, Clinics in a Can. Go to clinicsinAcan.com today. Our special guest here at the Beyond Emissions podcast, brought to you by Solagent. Welcome to the show. If you're just here, you can also rewind. This is on demand at the Solagent YouTube channel. Michael, I'm so thankful that you're here and what you and your organization are doing. You gave us a glimpse there, a mind's eye, kind of what you do, but if you wouldn't mind, give our audience an introduction of who you are and exactly what Clinic in a Can does. So you kind of delved into it a little bit, but go into that a little bit deeper. Just your overall mission, exactly what you do at Clinic in a Can all around the world.
Okay. Well, we're based in Wichita, Kansas. Our initial mission and how we learned so much about what we're doing now is we built a hospital in Bolivia, South America. And as time went on, people learned about us and asked us, hey, can you do the same thing in our country? And there's just not enough time or resources available to do that. And so we were already using shipping containers and packing them full of donated equipment and medicines and shipping them to not only the hospital down in Bolivia, but to 32 other countries in the world. And when we had somebody come up and request, we just decided, hey, why don't we use a container, convert it into a medical clinic, and ship that as our vehicle for responding to disasters or to provide aid in developing countries. And so for the last, since 2010, almost 13 years, that's what we have focused on. Now, originally, we were using Cummins and Onan diesel generators, the little quiet diesel ones that you'd put on an RV to provide power. But what we learned fairly quickly when the UNFP requested clinics for Philippines after Typhoon Haiyan hit, we flew over to Balaginga. They had flown the first two clinics over there, which were 20-foot maternal infant units. And we got there and we couldn't find fuel because it's kind of, in a disaster situation, food, water, and fuel are the things that are in short supply. So after returning, our team committed to learning about solar and to convert from doing diesel to solar. I mean, there were so many different benefiting factors to that. Number one, the noise, the pollution that we have with generators, but then also noting that the majority of the world, I think you wake up every day and it's sunny outside, so it's a free source of energy. We had a fairly vertical learning curve because, there's not a lot of people out there 13 years ago that were experts at it. So we had to be a do-it-yourself type of company of, falling down, scraping our knees, learning, doing it bad, and then just learning along the way. And now the majority of all the clinics that we send out are all solar powered. And, you mentioned Ukraine. We had the honor of donating 3 initially to an organization called Heart to Heart International out of Olathe, Kansas. And then they came back and they bought another 12 additional solar-powered clinics that we sent over. Some of these were trauma units, so it would be having everything in there that, unfortunately, if you were a victim of gunshot wound or a blast injury, you'd had all the equipment in there. And the whole thing was powered by solar. We used Discover batteries, we used Schneider or Victron inverters to provide the power. And, when you're thinking about sensitive medical equipment, you need constant power, pure sine wave, because monitors can detect if there's any, if the power's dirty, you'll get baseline spikes. And so you won't be able to tell whether a patient has atrial fibrillation or what's going on at the time, what's the artifact from. So now 90% of all the units that we send out are all solar powered, and it's fabulous. It's fabulous to know that we can send out this unit, this clinic in a can. They open it up. It's a turnkey solution. There's air conditioning, water. There's a solar power pod in there. They deploy the panels. We've created ways to mount them on top of the container, and they're pitch adjustable, and they're just a very slimline way of erecting them. Even somebody who's never done it before, within a couple hours, can have them installed and ready to go. And so that's what we've been focusing on. And our conversation a couple weeks ago is how to get better. We had attended the Renewable Energy Conference there in Las Vegas just this last month in September, and honestly, I was blown away. The technology that has come out in reducing the size of batteries, the inverters that are available, the way that you can stack inverters, because there's some projects that we're doing around the world that require large inverter capacities, and guess what? There are companies out there that are making it, Solarc, SMA, and it's just amazing. Amazing that the ability to store energy in these lithium iron phosphate batteries have changed. They're more stackable. You can have a large battery reserve, and all that's important for my application, because you are going to run into times that you don't have sunny days, and so you have to have a reserve. And one of the most expensive components of our whole solar kit is the batteries, but there are manufacturers out there that are pushing the envelope and creating better storage capacity at a lower cost. And so the whole thing makes it more accessible to our clients around the world, and it's pretty amazing.
And you mentioned some of the advances in battery and inverter technology that you witnessed there. We spoke about recently in our brainstorming session that we had. Clinic in a Can. Go to clinicinacan.com, folks. We've got Michael Wawrzewski with us, founder, president, and CEO of Clinic in a Can, here today on Beyond Emissions podcast, brought to you by Solagent. Here at the Solagent YouTube channel, Spotify, iTunes, and Stitcher. Thank you so much for being here, Michael. Those advances in technology, inverters, we talked a lot about it. And you mentioned during our call previously, but also just now, the advantages of having 2 or 3 days of additional capacity in case there was no sunshine, as an example, the inclement weather, what have you. And a lot of times, if not all the time, in an off-grid scenario, of which I've been blessed to have been able to work with customers and sizing thousands of off-grid systems in my career. And the one thing that I've seen as a big commonality is sometimes that inclement weather can go even beyond the 3 days of autonomy that you're building in for the extra battery capacity. And that's where the additional value of that inverter and the capabilities that it has can get you over the hump and in this case save lives. You were considering, I believe, the Solarc inverter as an example for some of those technological upgrades that you're looking for. One of the blessings of the Solarc inverter, and I know this because I work directly with the co-owners of Solarc and had them on a show previously, and they discussed this. So it's been confirmed. The owners of Solarc were able to go down when they were trying to figure out how can they make their inverter sync with virtually almost any generator out there. They literally went to Harbor Freight and just bought all these, foreign generators off the shelf. Some of them not even with the cleanest power, the cleanest sine wave, that, as you mentioned earlier, that can be a problem, especially in a medical application. Solarc was able to sync up with all of the generators. I don't know exactly how they did it. It's a technological wonder. But the Solarc inverter, basically you could plug in, they plugged in generators from just off the shelf at Harbor Freight. And boom, it worked. Coming out on the other side, pure sine wave, pure clean energy. And what a big blessing that's going to be to upgrade that inverter system, especially in a war zone or something. 3 days of capacity you've built in there for mitigating that potential problem of there being inclement weather. But then the ability just to grab a generator somewhere on day 4 or 5 and plug it in and not worry about whether it's going to sync up with the inverter, because most inverters are so finicky that they don't just sync up with any generator. That's not normal. So for this application, what a blessing that upgrading to the technological advances that come with an inverter like the Solarc that can sync up with any generator. I'm just thinking of all these amazing scenarios. And the batteries you're considering. U.S.-made Simplify Power was one of them we were talking about. And one of the big blessings there is you can add on. So let's say you send over the kit and they realize, we need 7 more kilowatt hours, or what have you, depending on the circumstance. Your end user now has the flexibility, if they can get their hands on 2 more batteries, to parallel in 2 more batteries. 2 years down the road, 5 years down the road, 7 years down the road, something that has not been possible for a long time with energy storage. But through these technological advances that you're discussing and what you discovered at through your experiences and then also at RE Plus in Las Vegas, the most recent solar show, it really does boggle the mind. There are really new opportunities to save even more lives now with your product as you continue to advance the technology, right?
I agree. As I mentioned, it was so overwhelming to see what companies have innovated and are offering for, the small mom and pop up to the industrial level of solar harvesting and battery storage. It's amazing. I applaud all the innovators out there and all the scientists and all those people that have been on the cutting edge and the pioneers of solar. You mentioned again Solar Arc. I was impressed with Solar Arc. I wasn't really that aware of them as I've been I've had a consistent diet of Schneider for many years because they're just a great product also. But, with Schneider, one of the disadvantages and advantages is that you have all these parts and pieces like Victron where you can add to it. Well, with the Solarc, they have been wise enough that they've made one unit that, whether I'm going to the United States, it's a single-phase 2-pole, or if I'm doing or going to Europe, that's, neutral, 1 hot phase and ground, that the Solarc, it's just a matter of programming, if I understand, and I can buy one unit and ship it wherever, depending on my application or depending on the client. And that other thing that it's got a charge controller already installed in it. It's already Wi-Fi enabled for remote access and monitoring. And then the other fact that it has that AGS already built into it, that, like you said, if you're in Ukraine right now and it comes wintertime and the load has outstripped the battery capacity, that they can connect just any generator off the shelf, wired up so it's on and off, and you're good to go. Once again, my hat's off to these people that are doing all the different things that they are to make my job much easier.
Battery agnostic as well, the Solarc inverter. By the way, folks, we offer the Solarc inverter and all the battery solutions right here. Go to solagent.net to find out more. Click on the link below to find out more. Not a commercial for us, but thought I'd let folks know if they want to take advantage of this technology. It is available here as well. Battery agnostic too. So in the event, the unlikely, but who knows? I mean, these are war zones. Anything could happen. Suddenly your batteries are no longer available. Yeah, we talked about this. Bill Graves, your representative from Solagent, mentioned it so wisely on the call we had the other day. The Solarc is battery agnostic. So in the event that your lithium battery system, something happens to it, and the Solarc is still okay, but the battery system needs to be replaced, you don't have to chuck your whole system. You could power by generator, of course, and pass it through the Solarc. But the Solarc is also battery agnostic. So you could literally go around to some vehicles that are disposed of or what have you, but maybe the 12-volt batteries are good. Put 4 of those batteries together in series and fire up for minimal power through the Solarc, because it's just looking for a 48-volt nominal battery system, not a specific chemistry or what have you. You just put the chemistry. It's battery agnostic. That really opens up a lot of flexibility as well. I mean, these are war zones. These are natural disaster zones. I mean, we really take for granted here in the United States. We don't experience a lot of these, and we have big natural disasters. I don't mean to, negate any of those, but I'm just saying, every day I get up, the water comes out of my faucet. I go turn my car on, fired up out in the front driveway. I don't think about these things because we're not in the middle of a war zone. I mean, thank God. But the circumstances are very bleak sometimes, right? With resources. What are the type of environments that these are going into? Am I right on that?
Yeah. So our clinics have been designed that the average amount of power that they consume is 500 watts. But normally they're running off at 233 watts. Everything's been designed to sit power, and that's because we understand that power is a limited resource in countries that are resource poor. And so if there's a tornado, like Moore, Oklahoma, or Greensburg in my area, or Joplin, you're going to drop one of these, you're going to pick it up, you're going to drop it off in a parking lot, and it's going to be providing, your primary care or ER care to those that are still trying to recover, months to years later. Or it's being sent to the Caribbean because there's been a hurricane, or to Haiti because there's been an earthquake. You don't know how great we have it in the United States until you've experienced a power outage because of a windstorm or tornado or whatever, or you travel to another country and there's blackouts or there's brownouts, and the air conditioning that we've become so accustomed to just for us to function better during the day and be more productive at our workplaces. And when you don't have that, you kind of start to feel miserable. And we joke around here all the time. It's like, how did people live 100 years ago or 200 years ago? When you didn't have a refrigerator to keep your food preserved. How did the generations not get sick and die from diarrhea or E. coli? I mean, a lot of people did. But we live in a society now that we just take so many things for granted. And electrical power is one of those things. And knowing that the sun comes up every day, thanks be to God, and it provides us free electricity, it's for us just to take that step and to install it on our houses. And in our case, we're installing it, in our clinics. And actually, I'm taking it even farther. We're putting like 120 kilowatts of solar up on our roof. We have 80 right now. And our whole facility, our manufacturing facility, probably within the next 6 months will be 100% running off of renewable energy. That's how much I believe in it. And it's just because if, for some reason you don't have power, or you can't rely on your local grid, or because the local grid can't support the growth of the United States, or we've had a cyber attack, or those things aren't going to inhibit your manufacturing. So, I'm looking at solar from so many different angles, and at some point in time, I will actually put it on my house too. But I have shake shingles, and it becomes a little bit more difficult to put solar panels on a shake shingle roof. Although they're coming out with flexible solar panels that are 400 watts, and those are so lightweight, and that I think that I can probably engineer putting them even on my house. So, I'm a solar hugger. You've heard of tree huggers, but, the more and more every day I wake up, I was just on the roof putting 11 more panels on our roof yesterday with 3 guys. We love it. It's a part that you think about all the energy sources that we have, besides the manufacturing of the parts and the pieces that you have to put together. But after that, the carbon footprint is zero. I mean, you are harvesting electricity for free every single day, sometimes less, sometimes more. But it's free electricity.
But it's day after day after day. It's not a barrel of oil that's dug out of the ground, taking our natural resources that took millions of years for that carbon to get there. And I'm not anti-oil. I'm not I totally understand that it's a part of our life. But this is the Beyond Emissions podcast. What if we could derive our energy without hurting our planet and not depleting our resources, our finite resources? It took millions of years for that barrel of oil to get into the earth, and then we take it out of the earth and we burn it one time, and after it's been burned one time or turned into plastic or whatever, I mean, definitely millions of uses come from it. But at the end of the day, those uses are just one time, one and done. Whereas what you just said, renewable, it's for real. It's day after day after day for several decades in a row. Big difference, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And once again, I know we need oil right now. There are so many things that, once they break it down into the different parts of oil, it's used in everyday life. We need it. But we as a society, when we have alternatives, there is no reason not to have solar in one way or another. We have wind turbines all over the state of Kansas, which I love it. It's another renewable source of energy. It's fabulous. But if you couple all these things together with solar, wind, the other technologies that are coming out, and then putting it with battery, you have a way forward. You really do have a way forward. And we talk about the environmental changes. It'd be kind of dumb of us not to acknowledge, that we are a big part of the problem. And I'm wasteful. I'm wasteful in many different ways. But I can also make a choice right now to make a change in everything that I do, to help me mitigate my negative contribution towards what's going on with the earth and it heating up. So once again, I come back to solar. It's been a great thing, a great addition that we've made to our clinic in a cans, to provide power when it's necessary, when it's required, when it's life-saving. It's the smartest thing out there. But then on the applicable level of me building clinic in a cans, the power that it takes to build a clinic in a cans is a renewable power source. Yes, I still do have grid backup, but to reduce my overall bill and yes, to make me feel good, I'm using solar. And so nobody knows me. I'm just a guy from Wichita, Kansas that does really weird things and has really weird ideas.
Yeah. Your ideas have been saving lives. Michael Wawrzewski with us, founder, president, CEO, Clinic in a Can. Go to clinicinacan.com, find out more. Are you a nonprofit? Can people donate? Can people participate in your mission?
Yeah, well, what we are is we have Hospitals of Hope, which is a not-for-profit, and that organization has partnered with Clinic in a Can, that when there are people out there that want to make donations to help save lives in other countries, they will pool the resources through Hospitals of Hope, and then they will purchase through Clinic in a Can, and then we just give them deep discounts because, everybody wants to make enough money that you provide for your people, which the family of Clinic in a Can is my workers, but also my family. But it is not about becoming Porky the Pig and becoming rich and losing touch with reality. It is trying to provide a resource to people in need. And if I make my prices too high, then it's crazy. But to answer your question, Hospitals of Hope is the vehicle that people can make donations to. We are an LLC for-profit company, just like Solagent is. So, yeah.
That's awesome. That is awesome. If you'd like to help and participate, Hospitals of Hope, is it hospitalsofhope.org, I believe I saw on your signature earlier? Yep. Okay, great. Hospitalsofhope.org. They partner with Clinic in a Can, and you can have access to being able to provide donations, what have you, to help save lives as well around the world. Recently, my heart just hurt so bad seeing, there's wars everywhere, and my heart hurts. I remember when the battle in Ukraine started, and I saw tanks roll in and roll over an old lady, and my wife and I looked at each other, and it's like, war is so horrible. This is so evil, and we escape it every day here in the United States by the grace of God, but we're looking here across the world now and watching what's happening in Israel and seeing babies beheaded, and it's just gruesome and horrible. And forgive me for bringing it up, folks. It's just what's in the news right now. And lives are on the line. And in these types of situations, in these war zones, minutes, seconds can be critical to saving someone's life. Clinic in a Can, that's really, you airdrop it in, you bring it in, you put it in a disaster zone or a war zone like what we're talking about. The difference between minutes and seconds can really be the difference between life and death, right? Clinic in a Can is a big part of saving lives in that situation. What are your thoughts about what's going on right now in our view in the news in the world, like within Israel? Is Clinic in a Can a part of some life-saving things going on in the Middle East, or are you guys headed there next, or how does that work? Forgive me for my ignorance.
No, that's okay. You're right. I've been a physician associate for previously known as physician assistants for almost 28 years now, and the golden hour is 90 minutes. So, when somebody's had a trauma, you have 90 minutes where the body normally will compensate for gunshot wounds, amputations, such of the nature, if, appropriate, immediate care is given to them. But physiologically, things change. To answer your question regarding what's going on around the world, but specifically in Israel, it's unfortunate that we have such hatred in our hearts that, we're breaking the 10 Commandments, thou shalt not kill. And I think that, whether the people in Palestine feel oppressed, there are diplomatic ways to get things done, but to go in and to systematically murder people, that's a heinous crime. And, I'm not going to be the one who sits in judgment for what occurs, but as a human being, it is atrocious. Anybody that gets killed, because life is precious. The domino effect of somebody losing their life, like in war, Ukraine, or what's going on in Sudan, or you just, spin the globe and put your finger down. There's probably some conflict zone in which people are being murdered. Is that it's just not one person that's losing their life. It is a generational thing. A brother's killed, they don't have a son, or a father, and or a woman, or on down the line. Everybody's life is precious. And the lifelong scar of losing somebody in a traumatic event like that is generational. So will we respond to Israel if we are asked? Absolutely. We're ready. Just give us the green light. We'll go over there and help out. Now, I'm not going to physically go over there right now because I don't think you can even fly in there unless you had a private jet. But in regards to can we and would we be willing to send over to Israel or even Palestine. I would either way. I'm agnostic when it comes to people in need. If you are hurt, I don't care what religion you are. I don't care what color you are. I don't care what your faith or anything. You're a human being in my eye, and you have the right to receive care. And we've taken care of all sorts of people in the hospital throughout our years. We never discriminate, and we can't as human beings.
It reminds me of the story from, I think it was 2 Kings in the Bible, where the prophet Elijah had a assistant named Elisha, S-H-A, and the Syrian army was surrounding them to come and capture and kill them. And Elisha, with an S-H-A, was freaking out and told Elisha, like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? They're going to kill us. And Elijah prayed to God to please open the eyes of his servant so that he could see the armies of angels and the chariots of fire that were surrounding even the Syrian army, and that there were more with them than against him, and prayed that God would cast blindness on all of the armies. And when they came over to the blinded armies who came there to kill them, he said, I'll take you where you need to go. And so led this entire army totally blinded all the way back to the king of Israel. And the king of Israel said, well, what should I do? Should I kill them? And Elijah said, no, you should feed them and let them go. And, it just reminds me of what you just said. It's not a judgment. Definitely murder has happened without a doubt before our eyes. No matter how oppressed they are on that side, what those folks did was just evil beyond evil, and there's no excuse for it. But when it comes to saving lives, you can even take your enemy who deserves maybe to die, but have that godly principle of no, feed them, clothe them, take care of them. And, Jesus even said that you should bless your enemies. And that's exactly what you're doing when you're sending a clinic into a can to these war zones. They may save a life on either side, but it's a life, and God cares about every single one of them and wants to see all of this stop. So forgive me for going off on a tangent there, but I am so thankful for what your mission is, Clinic in a Can, saving lives. Lives are precious. And I don't think that gets the spotlight in these stories. And I'm glad that we're able to talk about it on the podcast here today.
Well, thank you. And I agree with you. I like what you mentioned, the Old Testament, 2 Kings, that's fabulous. And I also think that the Bible teaches us that we need to have mercy. Our knee-jerk reaction when something atrocious is to have hate in our hearts and want revenge. And the hardest thing to do is to forgive. It's the hardest thing to do is to show love. But we're taught that, to pray for, our neighbors, but also pray for our enemies. And that's paraphrasing it, but that's the hardest thing to do because we feel wrong. And I think if I was in the situation of the Israelites that have lost children, wives, husbands, whole families, it's easy to say it, but to put it into action would be the most difficult thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah, no one wants to be in their situation that they're in right now. Now, Clinic in a Can has been in war zones, natural disasters. You travel to some of these locations, Michael?
I think that to every country that we've ever sent something to, except for South Sudan, I have gone as a representative of my company, but also to set the clinics up and to help train people. I take that back. I didn't go to Ukraine.
What do the people say? I mean, how do they respond? The people that you're dealing with on the ground in those countries.
They're quite surprised of the quality of the workmanship that's gone into these and just the durability. Because I can blindfold you and walk you into one of our clinic in a can, whether it be a single unit or multiple units that are put together, blindfold you, and you would think that you're in a doctor's office here in the United States, a modern one, that is, not one from the 60s. But we build ours, and they're beautiful. They're beautiful pieces of artwork once we're done, because each one of our staff here are artisans, and they do some wonderful work. But that has to happen, and it's taken many years to get to that point of failing and finding new product, new material that would last and be durable in whatever environment that it's sent to, whether it be a dry environment like Saudi Arabia where the temperatures get to 130 Fahrenheit, or going to very cold or wet or humid environments with a lot of salty spray like the Caribbean. So, the response universally is of great feedback.
You mentioned there's an internal water source inside of the Clinic in a Can. Michael Wawrzewski with us, Clinic in a Can. Go to clinicinacan.com. Our special guest today on Beyond Emissions podcast. Thank you so much for being here. Michael, water is included in the Clinic in a Can mobile hospital system, portable hospital system. There's water in there. Is it a big tank? Is it finite? Is there a water source that needs to be connected to it to add water to it later on, or water brought to it, or is there some sort of solar collector that takes the moisture from the air? I know those exist as well that can create an independent water system. How does that work from a water standpoint? I know that because water sources can be tainted in some of these places during the disaster, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. Our normal water system comes with a tank that can be filled, and it's got a pressure system that pressurizes it. Then there's hot water tanks underneath to heat the water. And then, if it's going to be something that somebody drinks to take medication or otherwise, then there's a triple water filtration system. So that's our standard. Now, for environments where water is very scarce, or, as you said, it's been contaminated because of a hurricane, or maybe there's bioterror, or there are companies out there that make atmospheric water generators that, you take electricity or solar power and you convert it into a machine that extracts the humidity in the air, and then they'll add back, because at that time it's distilled water. It's like an amped up dehumidifier, but it's more complicated than that. The initial water is all distilled, and then what they do is they add back the minerals, because you don't want to be drinking lots of isotonic or hypotonic waters, because that can be detrimental after a while. So yes, we have water systems that, water trucks can go around and refill it. Or there's other systems in which it's extracting the water from the air, and that's their water source. And it's all based around and engineered where these units are going. And so we'll analyze and make recommendations, and if it's in the budget of the client, then they'll purchase them. But once again, it's all solar powered.
Wow, that is awesome. That is awesome. Michael Wawrzewski, Clinic in a Can. Go to clinicinacan.com. Very cool. Languages, thinking of the Tower of Babel, I mean, these are going all over the world, and everybody's got a different language. Are there language barriers to Clinic in a Can at all? Or are things noted in the native language of where it's being taken? Or is it agnostic and folks don't have to understand English or what have you to be able to get around in the environment of the Clinic in a Can system?
That's a good question. Right now our most of the information that we send the owner's manual are in English or Spanish. Um, but beyond that, the way that the clinics have been made is that they're fairly straightforward. I mean, we've made it simple. From all the work that we've done around the world, traveling and seeing what people use, we've taken back all that knowledge, and we've applied it to how the clinic and the cans have been designed, and that's to keep it simple. If you're going to use the equipment on the inside, there are some pieces that require extra training, but if you're in the medical field and you're going to be using this, what we put in there is your basic, straightforward equipment, whether it be simplistic or more advanced. If you're going to use it, it's because you've seen it or have worked around something similar. And the most of us are on a fairly vertical learning curve with new equipment, or they'll Google it or watch podcasts of how to use it, or YouTube videos of how to use the equipment. So, everything's in English or Spanish, and then beyond that, we're hiring translators to go through, and we're going over that, or the translators looking at it in English and then translating it into Ukrainian. I think actually our manual's in Ukrainian also. I forgot about that, but so we have it in 3 different languages right now.
How interesting. And then connectivity, you mentioned when we were talking about one of the advantages of the Solarc inverter system that it was Wi-Fi ready. Wi-Fi oftentimes may not be available in some of these places, but voila, enter in Elon Musk and Starlink. I couldn't believe it when I saw that on the news that Ukraine was humming, like surviving through what was happening to them from a connectivity standpoint because of the Starlink system that was deployed and that they were allowed to utilize. Are systems becoming more readily available for connectivity, so that's not quite the issue maybe it was in previous disaster zones?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely correct. People used to walk around with satellite phones, and it was the way that we communicated when telecoms were knocked out. And now, with Elon Musk Starlink, the connectivity becomes less of an issue, and the ability to communicate around the world. I've never met Elon Musk, but when we talk about what he has done for the solar world, my hat's off to the man. He has pushed the envelope of storage, of battery storage. He's pushed the envelope of solar. He's pushed the envelope of, electric cars. I mean, he's a household name, but we really need to acknowledge what this man has done for renewable energies around the world. He's a pretty cool dude. At least when I look at it from that aspect.
He's the Henry Ford or yep. Thomas Edison or of our day, right?
I would say yes, absolutely. You think about all the different companies that he's involved in. The amount of money that the guy's worth doesn't influence me. That isn't a factor in judging character or anything of that nature. I judge more of what people do with the gifts and the talents that they've been given. And this guy has been gifted, and he's used it to push the envelope on so many, he's a trailblazer in so many different aspects. If you think about SpaceX, okay, what does he do? He's making a renewable, spaceship that we can reuse. I said renewable, sorry, a reusable spaceship that he can, use it over and over again. And then Starlink, and then his Tesla cars, and all the other things that he's involved in. It's amazing. It's just amazing.
I'm looking forward to getting on a Hyperloop, Mike. That's what I want. That would be just the coolest. It reminds me, I'm 46, so go back to the 1980s, driving up to a bank because my mom had to make a deposit, and in that vacuum tube coming over from the window, and it comes up and this jar pops out, and she puts her stuff in it, and then it sucks back up through the tube. I know I sound like I'm a million years old to millennials listening right now, but you probably remember as well, right? The same concept. I mean, his innovations are amazing, and I'm just joking. It's going to be much more exciting than a vacuum tube at a bank. We're talking, I mean, hundreds and hundreds of miles an hour. Literally, I mean, if there were Hyperloop systems all around the world, you could literally go anywhere. You could work anywhere. Talk about interconnectivity. I know I'm taking this in another direction, but wow. Just thinking about the innovations you described, how about all the stuff that we don't even know about that the guy's working on? Yeah. Hats off to Elon Musk and all innovators who are making this possible for us, right?
Absolutely. There are so many scientists or just individuals that are working in cubicles with this crazy idea that only they have the vision to make it come to fruition. And they're the ones that, beside all the naysayers, are the ones that are pushing technology and advances forward. My hats off to you. And my message to you is don't stop. Unless you're building something that is, against humanity. But if it's anything that's to advance humanity, if funding falls short, keep doing it. Because if you push through, you don't know what the ramifications are for our society. For you to work, work and feel like nobody's there to support you. Just keep doing it. I just encourage you to do that. And for all those other individuals that are financially backed well and you're pushing it, just keep doing it. I can go off on a tangent a little bit about this guy in Texas, Austin, Texas, that is making houses out of those, out of concrete, and it's using, what do you call it? Those machines that,
3D printing. 3D printing.
Like like a 3D printer. I just watched this weekend. I'd seen his work before, but they're talking about using that and applying the system, for the military, applying it for humanitarian purposes, and actually NASA, applying it to. It was on 60 Minutes this last weekend. I just thought, this is great. That, this guy giving it all. We all. You don't wake up one day and say we're going to do this. It's he was going to be a pastor or something like this, and he was like, I think I'm going to take this idea and see how I can make more affordable housing. And so with basically a cement 3D printer, he's building houses, and NASA wants him to potentially make 3D printed landing pads on the moon, and then eventually habitats on Mars. For most of us that live in like Kansas and other places, it just seems like, Buck Rogers or Star Trek type of stuff. But, someday people may be living there. And so here's this guy that's for humanitarian purposes that trying to help people, that his crazy wild hair idea can be used for other applications. And
we need dreamers. We need people that invest in that. Kids, if you're with your parents and grandparents, or you happen to be with your dad or your mom who's an electrician or an installer or a homeowner or whatever that's listening to this, and I got held captive listening to what my dad was listening to when I was driving around as a kid. So there's probably some kids that are sitting in the vehicle right now. Kids, we want to talk to you right now. You're the next innovators. Math, science, engineering. We need more engineers in this country. We need more dreamers. That's something that I'd like you to speak to. Innovation is key to what you're doing at Clinic in a Can. Michael Wawrzewski, founder, president, CEO, Clinic in a Can, clinicinacan.com. Go there right now. Also as well, Hospitals for Hope. The nonprofit side of that, if you want to help donate as well, saving lives around the world. speak to our kids, our younger generation that might be listening, innovators, future innovators. We need you. We need you. Get off your duff. And I don't mean to be rude, kids, but we need you. The call is here. It's right now, right? It's urgent. We need more dreamers, more innovators, mathematicians, engineers, scientists. All of that is the key, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the point that needs to be made is you look around in the world and see what the problems are, and you try to figure a way to make it better. Or you see something that right now is being utilized, and you go, I think I can make it better. Or take an application like what we're trying to do with the solar panels on the roof of our clinic in Kansas. For domestic application, we want to be able to harvest as much power as possible, but we need it in a small profile. And I know the Footprint Project with Will Heegard is doing a lot of great work, not only domestically here in the United States, but in other places of responding with their partnership with Schneider Electric and others to respond with solar power kits. But we're also trying to figure a way of how to innovate and put on top of our container where the panels slide in or are stored until they're deployed, and you have to figure out leverage, weight, and balances, and the physics of it all, and how will it withstand the wind being blown against it, and how do you keep it clean, what angle needs to go on it. So most of the time, all the innovation that comes about is here with our company is, we have a problem, or we're trying to make something better, and we're trying to push that envelope of what is possible. And so then that makes you just start scratching your head and staring at things and looking at it. Sometimes you're going to like the YMCA and you're stretching before you go run, and you're looking around the building. Well, how have other people done it in the past? And you take those little bits and morsels of what other engineers and how they've done it, and then you go, well, maybe I can take that, I can put it together with something else, and we can make, through research and development, something that gets me a little bit closer, and then a little bit closer. And then you talk to somebody else that has the capabilities of the engineering, and they might have the bit and the piece that you already need to take your idea further. And research and development and creating Clinic in a Can and any company that's out there, you didn't get to where you are today because you immediately created something great the first time. Now, there are some people out there that they design everything to the nth degree, and then they produce it. Well, I'm on the opposite, and I'm once again, I don't know Elon Musk, but I think that he, there's the engineering aspect of it, but he just says, go do it. Well, that's the same thing here. My common statement that I used to make all the time is, all you got to do. Well, I'll probably get a T-shirt that says that on there. All you got to do. The basic thing is come up with the idea, look at the problem, and we'll figure out what the solution is along the way. And, as you said, my kid loves to watch YouTube, and, I just tell him garbage stuff on my phone, and it's not to degrade the people who create it, but on an educational level for my son, watching some of the things that he does, I just don't like it. But, I'm always taking him in here and putting him, he's a 9-year-old. I said, here, watch what we do, because this is how you create new things. And if you want to someday, not just to contribute to society, but to use the brain that God's given you to create and to be a positive impactor on the world, you have to start watching and learning, and then identifying problems once again, and then saying, can I do something about this? And once again, that's how Clinic in a Can came about. And the whole drive behind Clinic in a Can, the whole drive behind solar, is that we ran into a problem. We couldn't find fuel in the Philippines. Well, guess what? That drove us to innovate. And we've been innovating and pushing that envelope to make things better, so that people, when they need our product and they're dependent on our product, that they don't have to question our quality. And it all comes back to, you got to have an idea, identify a problem, and then figure out how to fix the problem. It may not come overnight. It may take you months, and it may take you years. But if you keep pushing, you will come up with a solution.
Don't be afraid to dream. Persistence is key. Wow. Touching, man. Great way to end the broadcast. How I got goosebumps. That's so cool. Michael Wawrzewski, founder, president, and CEO of Clinic in a Can, also working as partners with us, Bill Graves here at Solagent. And I'm so thankful that I get to work with you and your team, Michael. Again, Clinic in a Can, go to clinicinacan.com. It's a company with a great mission, saving lives around the world, really. But also they have a nonprofit side, Hospitals for Hope, .org. And I want you guys to go there as well. You can donate as well, so that Clinic in a can be provided for those in need. Amazing what you guys do. And hats off to you, Mike. Innovation. Hats off to Elon Musk, you mentioned earlier. Well, hats off to you. Hats off to your entire team, because I know it's a team effort at Clinic in a Can. You mentioned that earlier. And got to thank you and your entire team for what you guys are doing, your R&D, your dreamers, your workers, everybody that has their hands in on these projects. For our listeners, if they would like to work with you guys in some way, shape, or form, obviously gave out the website, clinicinacan.com, but any thoughts that you might be able to relay to them as far as how they might better get involved in the mission that you guys are doing?
I think that, I could end it that we're taking an example of what the Footprint Project is doing with Will Heegard out of Minnesota. And we're trying to start up a similar type of initiative here in Wichita called our One Light Initiative. And that's basically letting volunteers come in here and to build portable solar systems that then can be donated around the world in need. So if anybody wants to come in, you'll be some of our inaugural classes. We don't have all the bugs worked out, but once again, it's coming up with an idea, knowing that it has the potential to create an impact. You'll fall, scrape your knee, but eventually we want to be able to create lots of these little solar pods that we can donate away. But, as a spin-off, people become comfortable and learn about solar and how easy it is for them to potentially use in their homes and their businesses. So you want to get involved in that, that's a good way to do it.
Awesome. Michael Wawrzewski, thank you very much, sir, for being on the program today. Thank you. God bless you and your entire team, your family, and your mission. We appreciate you so much, and thank you very much, Mike.
Thank you, Josh. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Hang on the line for engineer, sir. Clinicinacan.com. That's clinicinacan.com. Phenomenal technology, saving lives around the world. You heard it right here at the Beyond Emissions podcast, brought to you by Solagent. I'm Josh Brum, Energy Storage Manager here at Solagent, also host of the Beyond Emissions podcast. Make sure you like this video, subscribe, comment down below as well, so you can be a part of our ongoing conversation about creating a world that is beyond emissions. Again, the Beyond Emissions podcast is brought to you by Solagent, the largest pure-play solar distributor in the Americas.
We at Solagent are incredibly excited to announce our partnership with GivePower. Well, we wouldn't be here today talking to you about GivePower if it wasn't for our partners, LoanPal. They've been with GivePower since the beginning. Their contribution has given water and light to countless people across the globe. We are truly inspired by LoanPal's dedication to the cause. Something LoanPal said really strikes a chord regarding GivePower, that this is something that's more than money. It's what makes making money more worthwhile. In a lot of ways, that's synonymous with what we're doing here at Solagent.
Here's how you can help.
What we've decided to do is compound LoanPal's contribution by donating to GivePower on every order paid via our direct pay program through LoanPal. That's right. Every time your company uses your LoanPal portal to pay Solagent for material, 5 people get clean drinking water for a full year.
Together we're stronger.
Together, we can choose to be extraordinary by giving to people who live outside our reach. To us, this means a lot.
Sologent's purpose meets Give Power's mission. Join the impact. Sologent, Solar Engine. SolarEngineSolutions.com. Go there to find out more.